I settled for you. My ex was better. My girlfriend laughed at my 30th birthday party. 32 guests heard her call me a safe option. After I funded her life for 2 years, I didn't argue. I found the 3-month text thread where she begged him to take her back. I gave her 30 days to leave and let the entire party read exactly why her ex rejected her. I'm 30 years old today, actually. I work as a systems architect. I earn well, though I'm not someone who makes a point of talking about it. I've held the lease on my apartment for 3 years. It's in my name. Has been since I signed it. She moved in at month 10 of our relationship. At that point, we'd been together long enough that it made sense, and she needed somewhere to go. I covered rent and utilities. I added her to my car insurance. The car is registered to me. About 6 months ago, we opened a joint savings account. I put in more than she did, but I didn't track it like a score. I thought we were building something. She works part-time at a design studio. Her income covered her personal expenses and some of the groceries. The arrangement wasn't equal, but I didn't mind it. I was thinking longer term. I should say this too, because the rest of what I'm about to tell you will read cold. I wasn't with her because it was convenient. She was sharp, genuinely funny, the kind of person who could hold a conversation about something she'd only half read and make you feel like you were learning something. I fell for her the way you fall for someone when you're not expecting to fast, without planning for it, in a way that felt like good luck. 2 years later, she was living in my apartment, and I still thought that was true. I want that on the record before I tell you the rest. I should mention a couple of other things, because they matter later. The first time she mentioned Damien was about 2 months into the relationship. She called him ancient history, her words with a smile that lasted just a half-second longer than it needed to. I filed it. I didn't make anything of it. The second thing is that she had a way of describing my life that I never fully knew how to take. "You're so safe," she'd say. "You're so steady." Not cruel exactly, but not quite a compliment either. More like someone noting the temperature of a room and finding it slightly disappointing. I told myself it was just how she talked. I told myself steady was fine. Most people would be glad to have steady. Looking back, I don't think she was. But I wasn't looking back at the time. I was 30 years old. I'd put string lights up in my own backyard, and I thought I had a pretty good life. I wasn't wrong about any of that. I just had one variable I hadn't fully accounted for. I planned my own birthday party. I know that sounds a little sad, but it wasn't. It was just practical. I knew what I wanted. I knew who I wanted there, and I didn't want to leave it to chance. I called a caterer I'd used before, sorted the drinks, got the lights up that morning. 32 people showed up. It was a good night. It was a good night until around 9 o'clock. She found me near the grill and said she wanted to leave. I asked why. She said she was tired. I said it was my birthday and I wanted to stay a little longer. She said she wasn't feeling it. I said she didn't have to feel it. She just had to stay. She crossed her arms and went quiet. I went back to my guests. 10 minutes later, she found me again. This time, she wasn't keeping her voice down. She was saying something about how I never listened, how I always did what I wanted, how she never felt like a priority. I said this wasn't the time or the place. She said I always said that. And then she turned. She turned toward the people nearest to us, 8, 10 people, but voices carry in a backyard, and she said, "This is what it's like. I settled for you. My ex was better in every way, and I've regretted it every single day." She said his name after that. Damien. Clear as anything. The people closest to us heard every word. And sound travels. I saw heads turn from across the yard. I didn't move. I didn't raise my voice. I stood there holding a beer I'd stopped drinking, and I looked at her. She held eye contact. She wasn't waiting for me to respond. She was waiting for the room to register what she'd said. A friend of mine started to say something. She waved him off. I watched her face. She looked more relieved than sorry. I walked inside. Not a storm out. Not a dramatic exit. I just walked in through the back door, went to the kitchen, and stood at the sink. I ran cold water, and I started thinking. I thought about 2 years. Damien's name came up maybe 4 or 5 times over those 2 years. The first time, month 2 ancient history. The second time was about 8 months in. She mentioned a restaurant she and Damien used to go to in the East Village. No big deal. People talk about their exes. I didn't comment. The third time stayed with me longer. We were in bed one morning and she said, almost to herself, "You and Damien are so different." He was unpredictable. She said it the way you might describe someone who used to have a better view from their window. Like she missed the feeling, not the person specifically. I asked what she meant. She shrugged. Just different energy, she said. I let it go. And there was the night a few months back when she came home late from drinks with Maya. She sat on the couch, and I could hear her typing. It was past 1 in the morning. I asked who she was texting. She said, just Maya, catching up. I said, okay. I believed her. I went back to what she'd said in the backyard. Every single day. Not sometimes. Not I've been feeling disconnected lately. Every single day. That's not something you say by accident. That's not something that comes out because you had too much to drink. Every single day is a sentence you've already said to yourself, in private, enough times that it comes out clean and ready when the filter drops. I was standing at my kitchen sink at my own birthday party, putting together a picture I'd been handed the pieces of for a long time. And it wasn't one moment that made it. It was the accumulated weight of each small thing I'd filed and moved past: the restaurant, the morning comment, the late night texting, all of it landing at once. I didn't feel angry the way I expected to feel angry. I felt something cooler than that. Like a math problem, I'd been running with one wrong number, and I just found the error, and the whole equation was correcting itself all at once. There are things you don't let yourself see clearly when you're inside something. Not because you're stupid, but because you're invested. You choose the interpretation that lets you keep going. I'd been doing that for a while, I think. I just hadn't had a name for it until she gave me one, out loud, in front of 30 people, on my birthday. I turned off the tap. I stayed where I was. She came inside after a few minutes. She'd lowered her voice by then. I was drunk, she said. I didn't mean it like that. I didn't respond. I was still at the sink. She waited, then added, "You're not even going to say anything?" I didn't. She shifted. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. You always do this. You shut down and you make everything into some huge thing. I said something in frustration, and now you're going to treat it like I committed a crime." Still nothing from me. She stood there another 30 seconds, then went back outside. About 5 minutes later, Nina came in. Nina's a good friend, more hers than mine, honestly, but I've always liked her. She had that look on her face that said she'd been volunteered for this. "Hey," she said. "She's really upset. She knows she messed up. Can you just come back out and give her tonight? It's not worth making it a whole thing." I told Nina I appreciated her coming in. I told her I was fine. I didn't move. Nina hesitated, then went back outside. I was still in the kitchen when I heard it. The back door was open, a few inches, screen door, warm night, and her voice carried. She was talking to whoever was still out there. I couldn't make out every word, but I caught enough. She was describing me. How I shut down. How she always has to walk on eggshells. How I take things she says and make them into weapons. I stood there, and I listened to her rebuild the story in real time. She wasn't trying to fix what had happened. She was trying to decide what had happened. In her version, she'd said something imperfect and I was punishing her for it, and I was the one making the night difficult. If she could get enough people to accept that version before I said anything, she had something to work with. The shape of it was familiar when I looked at it straight, say something she meant, feel briefly lighter for saying it, see the reaction starting, and pivot. Let the room see me as the problem and the moment as a misunderstanding. What she didn't know was that while she was out there managing the story, her phone was sitting on my kitchen counter, face up, charging. And the screen was about to light up. I noticed the phone because the screen lit up. She'd left it on the counter when she came inside earlier, and she hadn't taken it back out with her. I was standing maybe 3 feet away when the screen turned on. I looked at it without meaning to. The name on the screen was Damien. The preview said, "You okay?" I want to be clear about what I did and why. I wasn't suspicious before that night, not enough to check her phone, not enough to go through her things. But the name that had just been said out loud in my backyard, in front of 30 people, was now on my kitchen counter asking if she was okay. That's the only reason I picked it up. I opened the thread. It went back 3 months. She had started it. The first message was sent on a Tuesday afternoon. I actually remembered that day. I'd been at a conference. I'd texted her around lunchtime. She'd replied saying she was working from home. The message to him, sent about an hour later, said, "I've been thinking about us lately." His response, "You're with someone though." Hers. A few days later, "I know. He's stable. He takes care of everything. But I feel like I'm sleepwalking." I read that line twice. 3 weeks after that, she sent, "If you ever wanted to try again, I'd be there." He replied, "Let's not go there." She came back 2 weeks later. "I know. I just miss how things felt." The energy was different. He stopped responding after that. She sent one more message about a month later, just hey, with no reply from him. And then tonight, he texted to ask if she was okay. I read through the thread twice, start to finish. I put the phone back the way I'd found it, face up, same position. I went back to the sink and ran the cold water again and stood there a minute. I thought about the word she'd used. Sleepwalking. She'd been living in my apartment, driving my car, drawing from a savings account I'd mostly built, and the word she chose for it in private, in a message I was never supposed to read, was sleepwalking. Not unhappy, not uncertain, sleepwalking. Like being here required no real decision from her. Like my life was just the place she occupied while she waited to see if something else would open up. And I thought about every single day again. The thread made it plain. This wasn't an outburst tonight. It was a private position she'd been sitting with for at least 3 months, maybe longer, about what her life was supposed to feel like and what it actually felt like. The backyard wasn't a slip. It was the version of that position she'd been editing in her head for months, finally coming out without the edit. I didn't go back outside right away. I had somewhere to arrive in my head first. I needed to be steady before I said anything. Ironically enough, when I was ready, I went. There were about 12 people left in the backyard when I walked back out. She was near the far end of the patio, talking with a small group. She saw me come out and the conversation around her slowed. I walked toward her. She said something to the people next to her, and they drifted back. I didn't lower my voice. I didn't raise it either. I said what I had to say at a volume meant for her. The apartment is mine. The lease is in my name. You have 30 days from tonight. She stared at me. The car, give yourself a week to figure something out. The savings account, I'll handle through the bank. You're not serious, she said. I saw the texts, I said. I'm not going to argue about what they mean. I'm not going to stand here and negotiate whether what you said tonight was something you meant or something you said when you'd been drinking. I just don't want to do this anymore. She started to say something. I let her get a few words out. Go find better, I said. Then I walked back inside. I went to the kitchen and set my keys on the counter. Not her keys, mine. I stood by the window for a minute. I could hear the backyard thinning out, people saying their goodbyes, the sound of a party that had run its course. I want to be honest about what I felt standing there. It wasn't satisfaction. It wasn't the clean movie version of walking away from something. I was tired, and I was hurt, and some part of me was still running through 2 years of a relationship looking for the stretch of it that had been real, and I wasn't sure yet what I was going to find when I got there. But I was done explaining. I was done trying to make her words mean something other than what they meant. She'd said it, 30 people had heard it, and I'd read 3 months of the version she'd been keeping to herself. She knew where the key was. I was still inside when she called him. I didn't see it happen. What I know is what Kelvin told me the next morning, in a text, 2 sentences, nothing more. Kelvin works at the same design studio she does. He's closer to her than to me. He had no reason to take sides, and as far as I know, he didn't try to. What he told me was this. She went to the far corner of the yard, took out her phone, and called Damien. A few people were still nearby. She called once. It went to voicemail. She called again. He picked up. There was noise in the background. He was somewhere with people. She started talking. Said something like, "Hey, I need to talk to you." And Damien said, "Why are you calling me this late? Aren't you at his party?" She stepped away from the group, but not far enough. Kelvin said he and 2 others could still hear. "Look," Damien said, "I'm seeing someone. You need to stop calling me like this." She said something too quiet for anyone to make out. "I'm not doing this," Damien said. "Get it together." He hung up. Kelvin said nobody spoke after that. She stood in the yard with her phone in her hand. He didn't ask if she was okay. He left a little while after. I read Kelvin's text at my kitchen table the next morning, coffee in front of me. I read it once and set my phone down. I thought about what it must have looked like from where Kelvin was standing. She'd spent the earlier part of the night telling people I was the problem, that I made everything too serious, that I shut down, that she walked on eggshells. And then she'd walked to the corner of my backyard and called the man she'd said was better than me in every way, and he'd told her to get it together and hung up. Kelvin hadn't needed to editorialize. 2 sentences was enough. She hadn't come back inside that night. She'd gone to Maya's. I know this because she texted me. The first message came through at 10:32 p.m. Staying at Maya's tonight. Just need some space. I scrolled up to read from the beginning. 10:58 p.m. I can't believe you did that at your own birthday. 11:47 p.m. You can't just end a 2-year relationship over one sentence. That's not how this works. 1:09 a.m. Please. I know I messed up. Can we just talk? Please. 2:51 a.m. Damien isn't picking up. I just want you to know that. I stopped there for a second. She had sent me that. She'd included it voluntarily at 2:51 inches. The morning in a string of messages meant to get me to respond. Like it was supposed to count in her favor. Like it helped her case that the person she'd publicly chosen over me, in front of 30 people, wasn't answering when she called. I kept reading. 3:17 a.m. I'm not trying to be with him. I never was. I got confused. I know that's not a good enough explanation, but I need you to know it. 4:44 a.m. I made a mistake. I know I did. I've known it since the words came out of my mouth. 6:13 a.m. Maya's couch isn't comfortable. Can I just come by to get a few things tomorrow? 8:04 a.m. I don't have anywhere to go. Please answer me. I read through all of them, start to finish. Then I put the phone down, face down, and finished my coffee. She had gone from I settled for you to I don't have anywhere to go in 9.5 hours. I want to be fair about what I was feeling sitting there. It wasn't triumph. It was something closer to settling that word, of all words. Like something that had been suspended for a long time had finally found where it was supposed to land. The math wasn't complicated anymore. She'd said her real position out loud, in front of 30 people, and then spent the rest of the night finding out what that position actually cost. I hadn't done anything to cause those texts. I hadn't arranged anything that happened after I went inside. She called Damien. Damien told her to get it together. She sent 9 messages between 10:32 and 8:04. Every word was hers. I didn't feel good about it, exactly. But I didn't feel bad about it either. I felt clear. She moved out on day 27. I hadn't heard much from her in the 3 weeks between the party and then. She sent a few messages about logistics, the car, the account, some things she'd left behind, and I responded to each of those. Practically. 1 question, 1 answer. Nothing extra. On move-out day, a coworker of hers brought a car. I'd taken the afternoon off. I helped carry 2 boxes, literally 2 everything she'd brought into my apartment over the previous year fit in 2 boxes and the back seat of someone else's Honda. I carried one, her coworker carried one, and that was it. I'd expected it to feel like more. Someone leaving a place they'd lived in for over a year. I thought there'd be weight to it. But there wasn't, really. It was just 2 boxes, a Honda idling on the street, and a coworker who kept his eyes down the whole time. I held the door. She walked through it. I went back inside. There wasn't much to say. We didn't say much. I went to the bank on day 3 and separated the joint account. It was straightforward. I took her off the car insurance at the next billing cycle. I gave her the exact date in advance so she could plan around it. She'd already sorted out a rideshare situation with a coworker. Nina mentioned it once, not as gossip, just in passing. I didn't ask for details. I didn't hear anything about Damien. I assumed that ended where it ended. Mutual friends handled it the way they always do. Some drifted, some checked in. Kelvin texted once to say he was sorry things went that way. I thanked him and changed the subject. Nina texted a few times. I replied to one of them. 3 months after the party, she sent me a long message. Paragraphs. She said she was sorry. She said Damien had been a chapter she'd never properly closed, something she kept returning to in her head, and that she'd spent the last 3 months carrying shame she didn't know what to do with. She said saying it out loud, in front of everyone, was the worst thing she'd ever done to another person. She said she'd been trying to understand why she did it. I read the whole thing. I didn't skim it. I sat with it long enough to know I actually understood it not as an excuse, but as a real account of what had happened inside her. I put the phone down and went to make coffee. On day 3, I'd also opened the retirement investment account I'd been putting off for 2 years. We were going to do it together, once we figured out our future. I figured it out on my own. I run on Saturday mornings. I cook on Sunday nights. The leftovers sit in the fridge without anyone commenting on them. She called it settling. I call it knowing what I'm worth. I've been fine with that long before she said it out loud.